Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, for the purposes of debate, I'd yield the customary 30 minutes to the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Larson, the ranking member of the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, pending which I yield myself such time as I may consume.
Recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'd ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous materials on the veto message on HJ Resolution 27.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm proud to once again rise in support of House Joint Resolution 27, which I introduced to negate an ill-timed and ill-conceived rule coming out of the Biden administration. I remind my colleagues on both sides of the aisle that since I last spoke on the floor of this chamber in support of HJ Resolution 27, the resolution passed both the House and the Senate with bipartisan support. While the Clean Water Act has greatly improved the health of our nation's waters in the 50 years since it's become law, this administration's rule defining a Waters of the United States, or WOTUS, is just the latest in a stream of examples of executive overreach beyond the intent of the Clean Water Act. Decades of agency interpretations and misinterpretations of WOTUS have created uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty, for rural communities, for farmers, for businesses and industries that rely on clean water. And this rule does absolutely nothing to provide clarity. In his message to the House regarding the veto of this legislation, the President claims that HJ Resolution 27 would, quote, leave Americans without a clear definition of waters of the United States, unquote. This is simply untrue and disingenuous, especially considering it was his own administration that decided to get rid of the 2020 Navigable Waters Protection Rule, which provided long-awaited clarity on the scope of WOTUS in favor of this new overreaching and unclear definition. This issue matters to everyday Americans all over the country, and I hear about it all the time. I'm disappointed to see the President favor radical environmental activists over America's families, small businesses, farmers, builders, and property owners. That being said, I'm hopeful that the members of the House and Senate can come together to override this veto, terminating this ambiguous and burdensome rule in favor of greater economic prosperity for Americans nationwide. Recently, 2 federal courts halted enforcement of the administration's rule, granting relief to farmers, home builders, and landowners in 26 states. Every member today has the opportunity to vote to override the President's veto and ensure all 50 states are relieved of the burdens this rule has created. I urge my colleagues to join me in voting to override the President's veto of HJ Resolution 27, and I reserve the balance of my time.
Thank you. The gentleman reserves.